Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss A Dog's Purpose, starring Britt Robertson, KJ Apa, John Ortiz, Dennis Quaid, and Josh Gad, and directed by Lasse Hallstrom. Forgive me if I said the name wrong. Now, I have seen this in theaters, but I haven't seen it since, and there was a lot of trouble going on with the studios. Well, with the forcing of a studio guy forcing the dog to go in the water in that one scene with the German Shepherd. But does it make the movie bad? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you. Let's get into it. We start with the dog, as all the dogs is voiced by Josh Gad, who will get captured and get put down, which does make me sad because it's a puppy. And another one runs out and gets stuck in a box, and a couple of mean workers pick him up and leave him in the car with the windows closed up until a very young Ethan notices the dog in the truck and keeps it with his mom and dad as they argue about whether the dog stays or goes, and luckily stays as Ethan names the dog Bailey, as it's a boy. And isn't Bailey usually a girl's name? I'm not going to get into that. I do love dogs, and I love this relationship between Ethan and Bailey, and some of you might not know this about me. I had a dog once. It felt like a good, strong connection between a boy and a man's best friend. Ethan and his family moves to the grandparents' farm as they got chickens there, and Bailey has fun with the chickens. And I'm so far connecting with this movie as it is sweet for a doggy movie. Bailey wants to play fetch with Ethan with a flag or flat football, as he felt sad about his parents, and it makes Ethan feel better as they play with the flat football. As they get back to the house, Bailey tries to play with the cat but messes up the father's office, and he cleans it up and while Ethan is at school, and says Bailey is the boss dog, which he reacts to. And Bailey eats a coin before dinner with Dad's boss's promotion with his wife. And Ethan wants Bailey to go to the potty, to get the coin out of the father, shows his boss the coin collection he had, and the father throws Bailey to the garage. Can I just say, I love Bailey as a dog. He's just so precious, such a good doggy, and the premise is sweet like any doggy movie in general. Ethan is now a teenager and is played by KJ Apa, and his father is an alcoholic and ignores his family and is abusive, as we'll see in a later scene. Ethan goes to the fair and meets Hannah, played by Britt Robertson, as they have a sweaty smell for each other, as Bailey senses, I'll say. They were in love. It's a sweet romance, and Bailey has a line that says she smelled like biscuits, as Bailey likes Hannah, and they go to the grandparents' house, and here's the mother and father arguing as they go someplace quiet, like a small town, for example. As Ethan and Hannah are deeply in love, and their chemistry is enjoyable, Ethan sees mom and dad fighting, and Ethan tells his dad he's gotta go, and he can't stay. And Bailey watches, and as they get home, Bailey doesn't know the cat is dead. And that was kind of funny, I guess. Ethan's father saw the football game Ethan performed as he's drunk, and Ethan got upset and punches someone named Todd, and next thing you know, Todd puts Ethan's house on fire and wakes up Ethan and mom and his mother, I'll say, and they get out of the house as Ethan's leg is injured, and they go to the hospital, and Bailey gets Todd, the fire starter, down as he confesses, and good for Bailey for getting him down. Hannah visits Ethan as he's upsetting her, and they break up, and that was a sad, and I'm not thinking this movie is bad so far. I don't know what the critics are talking about as far as the movie being bad goes. I think it's sad, sure, but I like the dog in this movie. And sure, the plot is not original, but I'm enjoying it so far. Ethan goes off to Michigan State, and Bailey goes after him as he's sad Ethan is going to college, And I was crying during that moment, as it is heartwarming dogs love their humans. As Bailey gets old, she got more tired and doesn't eat a lot like he used to, and the grandparents take him to the vet as Ethan watches Bailey get put down, which really made me cry when I saw this in theaters originally. And it did make me cry now, as it was very sad. Poor doggy. Another dog is now a female and is voiced by Josh Gad again, as it's a police dog named Ellie, who's a German Shepherd. And that's the kind of dog I had once a long time ago. And Ellie's master, Carlos, played by John Ortiz, who's a cop that owns Ellie. Carlos at first doesn't want Ellie on his bed, but eventually he caves and lets her, which is nice for a cop. Carlos tells Ellie to find a missing 12-year-old girl who's kidnapped by a thief as they encounter the thief and girl, and the dog goes in the water. And to save the girl, and this is where people saw before the movie came out, didn't want to support forcing a dog to go in the water, which did feel mean. I have seen that footage too. It does feel mean to the studio to force that dog in the water. Believe me, my dog didn't like being in the water too much either. Carlos is almost shot until Ellie saves her life and is shot, as that made me cry on my first viewing, not so much this viewing. But back in theaters, when Ellie died, I did like Ellie, as I used to have a German Shepherd as a dog, as she was the sweetest doggy I've ever had, and it reminded me of my own personal life with my doggy, and that was a good thing. I liked that doggy. The dog becomes a tiny dog, to quote The Secret Life of Pets, who names her, and the master names her Tino, who is voiced by Josh Gad once again, who eats chips, pizza, and ice cream as he gets fat, and Maya, who's the owner, tries to exercise with Tino as she bumps into a boy in her class named Al and his dog Roxy, and they start seeing each other and get engaged and become a family with a baby. Eventually, Tina and Roxy had each other and eventually become some sort of Beverly Hills Chihuahua, and as they got older, and Roxy does eventually pass away, and Tina passes away out of depression, which didn't make me cry as much, but it is sad. And the dog gets another puppy body, and this dog was left outside all the time as the owner never took care of her. As the dog stays outside and is abandoned with no walks whatsoever, and the owner's boyfriend throws the dog out to be a stray, which isn't a way to treat a dog in my opinion, and walks around and smells a familiar smell from a long time ago. And as he goes back to a familiar territory, as he goes to the barn that Ethan was at, and which is a good way to sense his own home from the past. And I'm liking all of this despite how sad it is, and despite how weird some of this could be at times. The dog finds Ethan as an adult, and played by Dennis Quaid, as he doesn't recognize it's Bailey, but he will, as Ethan doesn't want the dog, as Ethan takes it to the pound. And I am enjoying Dennis Quaid's presence in this movie, and I do love this dog story. Ethan gets the dog back from the pound and adopts him and cleans him and calls him Buddy. As this is getting heartwarming, Buddy finds a woman with the same dog as a grandmother, as he recognizes her as Hannah. And she sees Buddy's collar, and she returns him to Ethan as they recognize each other and have a talk, as Buddy tries so hard to think it's Bailey, as Ethan apologizes to Hannah about the reason why they broke up in the first place. And Ethan kisses Hannah and eventually get married. And the day after the wedding, Buddy gets the flat football from years ago to play with Ethan, as Ethan does the trick that he did with Bailey years ago. And as they do it, he recognizes it's Bailey in that dog, as the dog barks after hearing Boss Dog, and he's delighted to see it's Bailey in a different dog. And it's the sweetest ending I have ever witnessed in a doggy movie. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.1 out of 10. I really don't get the negative reviews this movie got, except the situation with that crew member who worked on this movie pushed the dog in the water. And but put that aside, I thought it was a sad but sweet movie with a heartwarming story, and it reminded me of my own personal experience with my doggy. And I love if you love or like dogs as much as I do, give the get that crew member that did that one thing to the dog out of your mind, because it is a really cute movie in that I believe it's underrated in my opinion anyways. So yeah, I recommend you guys check this out if you love dogs so much or like dogs so much. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and no, I'm not going to be back for A Dog's Way Home, but I will be back for A Dog's Journey. And until then,